Check, check, mic check. Check, check, mic check. Welcome to Podcast Envy, episode 79. I'm your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder, and today we are talking podcasting self-care for podcasters, something like that. Anyway, this is a companion series to my series over on my other show, The Creative Imposter, all about, quote, not your typical self-care, unquote. And today I am talking with the fabulous, wonderful, incredible, creative, dynamic human being, podcaster, and worthiness coach, Kelly Covert. Kelly is the creator and host of the podcast In Her Voice. And you're probably going to want to go ahead and add that show to your holiday listening queue after you hear this, as well as the continuation of my conversation here with Kelly on The Creative Imposter, and that is episode 120, where we go even deeper into some of the concepts and ideas that Kelly presents here for you around enoughness and finding kinder habits. Now, if that sounds a little soft and squishy to you, trust me, kindness is not soft and squishy, and this is a lesson that I have personally had to learn the hard way. Kindness is hard, especially when we're talking about being kind to yourself. And if you are anything like me as a podcaster, I know that you have found yourself in the trap of the not so kind approach of all of the things that you feel like you should be doing with your show or around your show or for your show. Like, I should be more consistent with my podcasting schedule, or I should, well, we're going to get into that in a little bit. In any case, if there is anything that you feel like you should be doing in 2021 that you are not doing in 2020, or you feel bad about not doing in 2020, I encourage you to listen closely to this episode, take it to heart, and consider getting Kelly's brand new Enoughness Planner, which has just come out in time for the holidays and in time for that season that I like to call Paper Journal Notebook Planner Obsession Season. Yep, that's right. If there's anything I like to do around this time of year besides buy a new tarot or oracle card deck, it is to buy more journals, notebooks, and paper planners. I'm obsessed. I can't help it. I'm looking at like 5 of them on my desk right now. The Enoughness Planner is undated, which means you can start it at any time, and it is a great way to help you in creating these intentional, kinder habits in a way that might actually be really useful in helping you create the show experience that you want to have in the new year. If you love this episode as much as I think you're going to, I would love to ask you a favor. Would you please hop on over to ratethispodcast.com/envy and leave me a review on whatever platform of your choice pops up with that link. Take a screenshot and send it to me so I don't miss it. 1, I can share it on a future episode of Podcast Envy. And 2, okay, I know podcast rating and reviews don't really mean that much. The thing is, I want to be on more podcasts in 2021. I want to share all of the things that we're doing over here and all of the things that I've been learning from all of these other amazing podcasters. And fortunately or unfortunately, one of the ways that PR people and booking people and publicists rate the merit of a potential guest or podcaster is by looking at how many ratings and reviews they have, especially on Apple Podcasts. I know it's not ideal, but it is a reality. And so it would really help me out. And plus, it's just super fun to know that someone is listening to this show and actually getting value out of it. Okay, enough with my desperate plea. Let's get into this conversation with Kelly Covert from In Her Voice. Kelly Covert, welcome to Podcast Envy.
Oh, I am so excited to be here, Andrea. Thank you so much for having me today.
When I was listening to a couple of recent episodes, you were talking about habits, specifically something you call kinder habits.
I love talking about habits because long ago, I used to have all of the list and all the to-dos and checking things off, doing the next thing. And I never felt good enough. Even if I finished something or I accomplished something, I never felt good enough. You know, when it comes to habits, I really believe that if we are intentional about the kind of habits that we have in our life, that that can really go a long way to cultivating that feeling of good enough, or what I like to call enoughness. So there's a few different kinds of habits. Kinder habits are habits that are rooted in how we want to feel and what we desire. The other kinds of habits, when I say these, everyone is going to be like, yeah, I know exactly what she's talking about. I call one of those habits like the shoulds, the should kind of habit. Like, well, I should exercise every day, so I will do that. Or I should eat this way, or I should do this, or I should do that. It's this idea of an external expectation that we put on ourselves based on what we see other people doing, or based on what we think we should be doing, or based on what our parents told us we needed to do. And I'm not saying that any of those habits are necessarily bad or good. Some of them are great habits and some of them are not great habits. But when they come from a place of should, we really need to evaluate how they are helping us feel at the end of the day. If I think I should work out every day and I miss a day and I feel bad because now I haven't done the thing that I should do, is that really helping me feel what I want to feel? This is something I've been practicing in my own life for over a decade, and I still bump up against the shoulds.
Yeah.
I should be doing this. I should be doing this. This is what it should look like. And I think that it really takes a lot of courage to be able to say, you know what, it doesn't have to look like this. I don't have to do it this way.
Okay, I'm going to take a quick pause right here and frame this up for us podcasters. Take a look right now at all of the things you are currently doing and want to be doing in the new year as relates to your show. What are those things that you are piling on your plate because you feel like you should? Be more consistent? Get sponsors, do more solo episodes, post more on social media, make those fun little audiogram things on Instagram, batch record more episodes in advance. Now ask yourself, does it have to be that way? Are these choices that you're making going to help you feel the way you want to feel about your show, about this thing that you're creating and putting out in the world? I know it might sound a little mushy, but I promise you there is a point to this exercise. If the answer happens to be yes, these are the things that are going to get you closer to the way you want to feel about your show, then answer this question. Is it enough to think that we will be able to do these things and develop these new habits that are going to help us by sheer willpower? Like, we'll write it down for 2021 and it's just going to happen that way. Let's ask Kelly.
Yeah. And I think a good way to kind of back ourselves into this question is to think about how to create habits to begin with. Like you say, you sit down with your sheet of paper or your notebook and you're going to journal, you're going to figure out, you're going to change the world. 2021, it's going to be the best year ever. And again, if we really come at this from a place of listening to ourselves, listening to our inner voice and asking questions that help us get to the root of not what do we want to accomplish, but how do I want to feel? What do I want my life to look like? How do I want to show up in the world? To me, these questions are better questions. So anything that you want to feel, I think a big one for people that listen to this podcast is I want to feel successful. Okay. How can you feel successful today? And what will that look like? And I think success is a really tricky one because oftentimes we have these preconceived external ideas of what success is. But if we get down to the heart of it and we start asking ourselves questions like, what does success feel like? Really? Like, what does success feel like?
Okay, pause again. This is a question I have started to ask of all of my clients who are developing new podcasts or consulting with me on some aspect of their existing show. I even have started asking it in my preliminary consultations. I call them podcast teas. That's T-E-A, plural, not T-E-A-S-E. Anyways, here's the question that I've been asking. How will we define success? It's a question that baffles nearly everyone, at least at first. So let me ask you. What does success look like for your show? And if you default in your answer to a certain number of downloads in your stats, I'm going to ask you why. Why that number? Why more downloads? And if you say a sponsorship deal, fine. But why? Because maybe you're thinking too narrowly about the method by which you need to get to quote unquote success. Maybe you're fixated on the downloads, but what you really want is to know that your show is making a difference to people. Do the numbers really tell you that? Maybe you're focused on getting a sponsor, but what you really want is some sustainable income for the work you're putting in. Is a sponsor the only way or even the best way to do that?
Then we can say, okay, well, what makes me feel like that? What are the things that I can do to help me feel like that? Who can I be to help me feel like that? One of the things for me that helps me feel successful is being able to be generous. And so when I am generous, then I feel successful. And isn't that interesting? Because normally we wouldn't associate generosity with success.
And now it's time for our podcast angel, the Podcast Envy Pro Pod. This is my brand new membership program starting in 2021 for you if you are a creative professional who podcasts with at least 6 months podcasting experience who is tired of feeling like you're doing it in a closet all by yourself. Well, you don't necessarily have to be in a closet, though I know some of us do record there. This is for you if you have been happily podcasting along, but there are these deeper questions that you have about your show, and you would like to have access to many minds who can help approach this question from different points of view. So let me tell you a story. Recently, I was doing a little bit of research on design podcasts for a potential new client. And what I found about several of the podcasts around the topic of design, which I realize is broad because there are many different types of design, is that they often frame their show in a very similar format, which is to present a problem or question at the beginning of the episode. Like, for example, the problem is too many people aren't getting good sleep. And then to proceed to address that question and look for design solutions by speaking to different experts from different areas of design. So in the episode I'm referencing specifically, it was a sleep app designer. It was someone on the design team of an actual sleep tracker that goes underneath your mattress. It was also a medical professional who is a sleep specialist. So answering this one question or problem from multiple points of view and coming to some real solutions based on gathering all of that information, all with some great music, some personality, some fun, some flair, some storytelling. Well, that is exactly what I am envisioning for the Podcast Envy Pro Pod, to answer the questions that you have around creating the best show experience for you, your listeners, and your guests. We're starting in January, and I have a spot for you. All you have to do is apply at thecreativeimposter.com/podcast-envy-pro. And if you want to have a quick conversation with me before applying to see if it is right for you, go to thecreativeimposter.com/T420. That's TEAFOR20 to book a quick 20-minute podcast tea date with me. Let me know that you want to talk about the Pro Pod, and we'll see if it's right for you. All of these links, of course, are conveniently located for you in the show notes, in the episode description, in your app.
It's really about taking the time, and the process that I have laid out, it doesn't have a fancy name. It's called the quarterly desire process. It takes about an hour, right? And it's about sitting down and digging into these things. How do I want to feel? What do I want in my life? How do I want to show up? Who do I want to be? And then we can extrapolate from there.
So one thing that I want to, and this is probably part of your process, I'm going to guess, but let's say you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to set some kinder habits around the way that I want to feel. And you sit down with that notebook and the quarterly desire process. And I would say, especially in this year, this has come up a few times for me and for people in my community where we're like, I don't actually know how I want to feel. I just don't want to feel like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I am a very positive person. We were talking before we got on, and I'm like, I'm an eternal optimist. Like 2020, worst year ever. I'm optimistic. There's something good's going to happen. But I think that we can't discount what we don't want. Because oftentimes when we spend time with what we don't want, and I'm not talking about focusing and looking always towards what we don't want, but using it as a tool. Okay, well, I know I don't want to feel tired every single day.
Or for us podcasters, I don't want to feel like I'm on the production hamster wheel, running and running to produce content every week. Or I don't want to feel like no one's listening and my show totally sucks. Or I don't want to feel a sense of dread every time I sit down in front of the microphone. Ugh, why do I keep putting it off?
Okay, I don't want to feel tired. Well, if I don't want to feel tired, what do I want to feel? I want to feel energetic. I want to feel full of life. I want to feel zesty. And sometimes getting to a really fun word like that will help you. Okay, well, what helps me feel zesty? Well, like doing something like this, like connecting with you. Like I feel so zesty right now. I feel like alive and energetic. And this is something that I know I can facilitate for myself, this connection. When I'm connected with people, I feel more energetic. So it's about using how we don't want to feel to turn it around, turn it upside down. Okay, what do you not want? Great. Now let's change it. If you could have anything, the opposite of that, what would that be? And how can we create kinder habits to get there?
Good question. How can we create those kinder habits to get us to where we want to feel about our show? I personally want to feel energized, organized, impactful, and connected. So, how to get there?
I actually spend time in my life throughout my day, like trying to pay attention to the things I know to be true about myself. So, one of my worthiness reminders that I write every day right now is I am magic. And I love that because it creates this sense of like excitement in me, this sense of possibility, this sense of like that anything is possible. And when something happens that feels magical, I make special note of that. I feel when I am, again, like this experience with you recording a podcast, to me, this is magical. We're creating something that didn't exist before. And we're doing this like just by the power of our energy and our will and our spirits and these beautiful people that we are. That's magic. And so we have to know what we want. And I also believe that if you know that you want that, if you know you want to feel that, that's already in you. Otherwise, you wouldn't even imagine that. That wouldn't even be in your realm of possibility.
Okay, back to energized, organized, impactful, and connected. Early in 2020, I hit a podcasting slump. I was enjoying working on other people's shows. It helps that I get paid to do so. But I was really over podcasting myself. I was over podcast envy. I was over the creative imposter. I did not want to record anything. And then the pandemic arrived. And for a moment, I didn't want to do anything, podcasting or otherwise. But then suddenly I discovered a purpose to reach out and find out how other creative business owners were navigating all of this. Hence our Creative Pandemic Pivot series on both Podcast Envy and The Creative Imposter. What I found is that scheduling those interviews gave me a sense of purpose, a way to feel connected during shelter in place, and it gave me some structure to my week. There's organized. All of that gave me energy. Okay, let's hear more from Kelly specifically about her show in her voice. How does all of this apply to podcasting for her? I'm curious for you what the connection is between your practice of podcasting and your show and all of the people that you've connected with that you said give you like that zesty feeling and give you that sense of energy.
This is a really interesting question. And, you sent me this question ahead of time, and I'm glad that you did because I was like, oh gosh, I've been podcasting for so long that it just is now feels like a part of me. It's like, oh, like you get up and brush your teeth and then you go podcast. It's just one of those things. But for me, podcasting is how I came to truly understand that I am a creative being. And people listening are probably gonna be like, you're a professional musician. What are you talking about? But for whatever reason, I always thought of like creative people were people who create things, like they paint a painting or they can draw or they write a book or, like that there were sort of these preconceived things that meant creativity to me. And when I started podcasting, I fell into a space where I was able to be all of myself and access my full creative being. And I think that my creativity is now one of my core values because it's what helps me understand the world. It's like the lens through which I see the world and through which I understand myself. And so podcasting for me has been my way of understanding and then accessing over and over and over again this creative being that I am. And, the other part of podcasting is, when I do it, I am not thinking about anything else. It's the place that I can go and be most present. And that has taught me how to be fully present in other areas of my life. When I'm here with you, this is all I'm doing. This is all I'm thinking about. I am 100% here. And learning how to be, I didn't have to learn it for podcasting, right? Like that was just the place where I discovered that you can be 100% present. And so I'm able to now understand that like in other areas of my life, it is possible for me to find that sense of flow and well-being and presence that I find in podcasting. So it's really opened up my idea of who I am and who I can be in the world and how I can be most myself most of the time. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I feel a lot of those same things. I always did feel creative, I think, but there's something, I actually think that the podcasting is one of those things that is a habit that helps me to feel more successful.
Well, and see, there you go. I love it. And I think just like how you made that connection, when you have these questions in your head all the time, like what helps me feel XYZ, when you feel that way, like it becomes apparent, like, oh, this is one of those things that helps me feel that way. And so just the practice of doing that helps the answers come to you.
Yeah.
I love it.
Podcast Envy is produced by your podcast boss, Andrea Klunder. That's me. The Podcast Envy theme music is by Valentin Sosnitsky, courtesy of the Free Sound Project at freesound.org, and our podcast Angel music is by Benjamin Mastropolito, also on freesound.org as Lemon Cream. All music is licensed under the Creative Commons. Our episodes are mixed by Edwin Ruiz, and hey, if you want your show to sound as good as ours, hire us. Put the magic audio mojo of the Creative Imposter Studios to work for you. Thanks so much for listening, and here's to making your podcast the envy of everyone else.